So I want to move over to politics. So I got a Donald Trump interview popping up, all right? And what was interesting about it, they was asking him, certain little questions like this lady right here, she a little feisty. Um, but it was definitely something interesting to hear, just her challenging him or whatever, the question that she was asking. And the one thing, because I did, check some of it out, the one thing that I definitely can say about like Trump, like, well, with this go around, is he's definitely not. He's never been afraid to get on camera and talk, but like I see, it seemed like he's doing a lot more interviews, which is cool. You know what I'm saying? You definitely get the president's opinion, thoughts, see where he at. You know what I'm saying? Kind of hear like what he's talking about as far as moving forward and with the entire country and everything like that. So it's kind of interesting to hear. So let's jump into that.
A few hours ago, I sat down with President Trump in the diplomatic room at the White House. We talked Doge, China, illegal immigration. He even told us what he sees for Barron's future. But we start tonight with the big news, his conversation with Vladimir Putin. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We got a readout of your call with Vladimir Putin, and it was a fairly optimistic take. Vladimir Putin agreed to a ceasefire immediately on energy and infrastructure,
right,
but not to a 30-day ceasefire. Tell us what happened.
Well, you have a situation. We have a lot of guns pointing at each other foolishly because it would have never happened if I were president. That was not a war that was supposed to happen. And it did happen. So that's where we are. And right now, you have a lot of guns pointing at each other. And a ceasefire without going a little bit further would have been tough. Russia has the advantage, as you know. They have encircled about 2,500 soldiers. They are nicely encircled, and that's not good. And we want to get it over with. Look, we're doing this. There are no Americans involved. There could be if you end up in World War III over this, which is so ridiculous. But, strange things happen. And I think we had a great call. It lasted almost 2 hours. Talked about a lot of things and toward getting it to peace. And we talked about other things also.
Was there non-negotiables mentioned by Putin? It was reported that I think the Kremlin media actually stated that he demanded an immediate cessation of aid to Ukraine in order to get to this multi-step deal.
No, he didn't. We didn't talk about aid, actually. We didn't talk about aid at all. We talked about a lot of things, but aid was never discussed.
In the readout, it also stated that both sides want to get to an improved bilateral relationship, the United States and Russia.
That's true.
How can we trust that Vladimir Putin actually wants that, in that he's not also being influenced at the same time by his close friend, President Xi of China?
Well, look, we have our own discussions with President Xi of China, and he wants to get along also, and he's looking to get along, and we're looking to get along with him, and we will. We have a problem of trade where we have a very big imbalance with China. With Russia, we don't have that much trade, and they'd like to, and we'd like to also. They have some very valuable things for us, including very big forms of rare earth. They have a lot of earth. They have a big chunk of real estate, actually the biggest in the world for a country by far. And on that, they have things that we could use, frankly, and that other people could use. I think that President Xi would like to get along, and I think Russia wants to get along with the United States. I also think we're a much different country than we were just a few months ago. We're a country that's now respected. We were not respected. We were being laughed at. We had incompetent leadership. This was a war, as an example, that would have never happened if I were president.
Is part of your desire to forge this new relationship with Russia also impacted by Russia's closer relationship since you left office in 2021 with China? Because I think you talked about before the desire to box out China from that part of the world and have a closer relationship with Russia.
So as a student of history, which I am, and I've watched it all, the first thing you learn is you don't want Russia and China to get together. With that being said, no, it's not a big part of it, but maybe that'll happen or maybe it won't. Obama really forced them together through energy and bad energy policies. And what he did, so many different things. He forced a marriage which would never have taken place. It was not a natural. And for one reason, Russia has tremendous land, a lot of land, and China doesn't have enough land. Russia has a much smaller population than China. And it's sort of it was always a natural enemy situation. They're probably friendly now, but we're going to be friendly with both. I think we're going to be friendly with both. China needs us in terms of trade very badly, but we have to straighten out the deficit. We have now more than $1 trillion deficit with China. It's not even believable. And we're going to be doing something about that. And with Russia, they would like to have some of our economic power.
The criticism that you've heard since really 2015 is that you have more in common with Vladimir Putin than you do with globalist leaders, maybe some NATO leaders, and in this case, with Zelensky. You're both nationalists. Zelensky's more of a globalist. How do you respond to that criticism?
Well, I am a nationalist, but I'm a nationalist for the United States, not for anybody else. And it's interesting because there's nobody been tougher on Russia than me. I'm the one that pointed out Nord Stream 2, and I stopped it. Nord Stream is the biggest pipeline, I guess, in the world, taking care of all of Europe. And it was being built from before I got there. And they were on the way. It was going to be, and I stopped it. It was just stone cold dead. I stopped it in its tracks. That's not somebody that's being particularly, it was the biggest project they ever had. I had it stopped. When Biden got in, he immediately approved it, like immediately. One of the first things he did in office was he approved Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2 until I was president. I said, what are you doing? You mean you're building a pipeline to Germany and various places in Europe. You're paying them billions of dollars a month, and then we're paying a lot of money to fight them. This is not going to work out well. And it stopped, and then Biden approved it, which was a really stupid thing to do, but he did it. And Putin actually said to me, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as my enemy. He said that very strongly. But with all of that, I had a very good relationship with Putin. I had a very good relationship with President Xi, a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Lots of good relationships. And that's a positive thing.
Let me ask y'all a quick question. Do y'all think what Trump is doing as far as the connections that he's building with like North Korea, trying to establish a good connection with China and Russia, do y'all think that's more beneficial than what has already been done from previous administrations? Or do y'all think it's worse off? Let me know what y'all think in the comments. We're gonna finish a few more seconds of this. Then we're gonna have a little quick conversation and go over to the next part of the show.
That's not a negative thing, but at the same time, I'm about our country. So that's why we're talking about tariffs. We'll be taking in trillions of dollars.
I'm going to get to the tariffs in a minute because we're going to first hit the other big news of the day, which was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court issued what a rare statement about your suggestion on Truth that you posted earlier today that Judge James Boasberg should be impeached after he ordered those deportation flights to El Salvador halted, essentially turned around. The Chief Justice said it was more than two centuries. We understood that essentially impeachment was for very rare circumstances and not an appropriate response to rulings you disagree with. What's your reaction to the courts stepping in to make a statement here? They didn't make a statement when Joe Biden decided to forgive all those student loans.
Well, he didn't mention my name in the statement. I just saw it quickly. He didn't mention my name, yeah. But many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge. I don't know who the judge is, but he's radical left. He was Obama appointed. And he actually said we shouldn't be able to take criminals, killers, murderers, horrible, the worst people, gang members, gang leaders, that we shouldn't be allowed to take them out of our country. Well, that's a presidential job. That's not for a local judge to be making that determination. And I thought it was terrible. In fact, he said when they were well on their way, there was an order issued, as I understand it, to bring them back or to not let them go or something. And this is not something that the country would stand for. These people, they were let in here by an incompetent president who had open borders, and anybody throughout the world could come in. And we were given murderers. We were given people from mental institutions. And
so I'm not gonna lie. A lot of times, just me, like personally, I always typically have to like fact check a lot of stuff Trump says. Some of the stuff do be like he be on point, but some of the stuff he don't. So that's one thing you kind of gotta like be careful of when you are listening to politicians or just listen to like news outlets. Just go in and like do a fact check. Like go to Chat GPT. Like some what I would do is I take like maybe like the transcripts or I had Chat GPT search the transcripts of the actual show and just pull up everything and fact check it. Because sometimes they be exaggerating or lying. But for the most part, everything that Trump has been doing, what I'm saying, from what I've been seeing, from what I've been reading, researching, it doesn't seem necessarily like bad. I know in previous administrations, it's always been up and down, but like right now, we not doing the best. So it's like a lot of people are, really upset on everything that he's doing, Doge is doing. But I honestly want to see like where it goes. I'm optimistic about the entire situation. I know, people got their own feelings and they right, left, all like that. Like I tell anybody, I'm neutral. I just want to see what type of economic environment that is created from everything that he's doing, as far as with the tariff war and stuff like that. And one thing I know for sure, when things are bad, things has to get worse before it gets better. But if you a type of person that whether you follow like, the stock market or anything like that, you can always make money. And on top of that, when stuff is going up and down, it kind of creates opportunity too. So that's another thing you gotta also think about as well.